Now let me turn to CNBC contributor Jared Bernstein. He's former chief economist for Vice President Joe Biden, and real estate expert Stephen Meister, a managing partner at Meister CNBC. Jared Bernstein, I like this stuff about the short sales a whole lot.
Yeah,
I hope the fiscal cliff gets taken care of. But the other $75 billion that preceded it and the $200 billion plowed into Fannie Mae is a waste of money and probably held up the problem longer than it should have.
Well, look, that's a different argument, in my opinion. It's a good one. I'm happy to have it with you. In fact, I would argue, as you'd probably suspect, that helped us to get us where we are, where we have a bit of a recovery in the housing market. I think it's fairly widely accepted that we've carved out a bottom. But here's the question at hand. Should the government now get out of the way? You and I are going to agree on more of this than you might think in the following sense. Absolutely, the government needs to ultimately wind down its position. Otherwise, private capital can't compete with it in that space. But it absolutely can't do it too soon, and private investors continue to show no appetite for credit risk in that part of the market. And if the government gets out too soon, you're going to kill what little recovery we're seeing now in the market. Private label, it's just not back yet, Larry.
Steve Meister, let me get your take on private label. Let me get your take on the short sales. Let me get your take on this smaller program. Really, it's funny how less money is actually very helpful. What do you think? Should the government get out of the way?
It should get out of the way absolutely right now. It should have gotten out of the way years ago. Look, Larry, the commercial real estate market, which went down more than housing, probably 45 to 50%, has recovered half of its value. How'd that happen without the subsidies? The overarching thrust of the government intervention in housing, Larry, has been to keep in place two-year defaulted, way underwater borrowers to subsidize them, and thus it has prevented market clearing processes and enormously delayed the recovery. So we need to get out of this now. It works in Canada without GSEs. It can work here. And Mr. Bernstein's remarks reminds me of what he and Christine Romer said back in early 2009.
That's completely off point.
Absent the stimulus,
that's
we're
completely
going to have
off point.
Unemployment go, above 8%.
So, look,
it went to 10% with the stimulus.
I came here to listen to Stephen make some sense, and he hasn't yet. Look, he may be one of the only guys out there who doesn't realize just how private investors have completely avoided the private MBS market. I looked at some of the numbers today. If you actually look at non-agency MBS, it is up from last year. It's up about $5 billion, about $15 billion to $20 billion.
Jared,
it was 900. It was almost $1 trillion in the mid.
Jared, as an economist, you should know that the recovery is based on cash investors. It's based on investors who are buying for cash to rent out. And furthermore, as an economist, Jared, you should know that deploying capital to inefficient sectors is not an answer. The reason we don't have jobs is because money is going into the government and money is going into housing. We need plants and factories, not more houses. We need jobs in this country.
As an economist, Stephen, as an economist, I very much agree that we need a housing market at the bottom of this economy if we're going to have a foundation to build off of.
Commercial?
I think we can probably agree.
Jared,
but listen, Stephen, wait.
Commercial?
Stephen,
how did it recover without your intervention?
Let's not talk over each other. Listen, let me say.
Jared, I'll give you the last word. We're running out of time. I'm sorry.
Because home prices are beginning to appreciate, we actually have over 1 million underwater borrowers who are now coming up over the surface, and they're able to refinance into lower rates, just like Diana said. This is helping to boost the recovery. To kill that now by pulling out the government roll too quickly would be a huge error.
I just want to see the short sales continue. That's all I want to see.
I agree with you,
The
Larry.
rest of it, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae, we've made a complete hash of it, and I fear that we're going to also make a complete hash out of FHA. The Federal Housing Administration could go bankrupt before this is over. Anyway, that's all for future segments. Jared Bernstein, thank you. Stephen Meister, thank you.